Hello and welcome to Data Planet. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is fractional CMO and author of the upcoming book Clarity Curve, Robin Bowling. Welcome to the show, Robin.
It's a pleasure to be here, Emma. Thank you.
All right, so you have a book coming out that is designed to share some valuable lessons you've learned over the course of your career. Um, from what I understand, it's digestible, parable sort of format book. And so I thought it would be helpful to start with some context around what your experience has been. So we're going to start by talking about you.
Okay. Sounds
All right.
great.
So, correct me as I'm going along, but from what I understand, you studied marketing undergrad. You started your career as the owner operator of an insurance agency.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right. And then from there, your career took this sort of diagonal via the insurance industry, but more into marketing and sales through MetLife, Farmers, AIG, and then took another little turn, staying on the marketing and sales enablement side, but through sort of science and health specific organizations, SaaS companies that really orbited the healthcare space. Um,
That's exactly right. Yeah.
okay, awesome. And you got your MBA in organizational leadership. Um, Most recently, currently working on your DBA, your Doctor of Business Administration in Strategic Leadership, and working as a fractional CMO and CRO. And then I guess you were bored. So presumably in all your spare time, you're also writing a book.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
excellent.
correct.
All right. So what is your goal with this book? What did you set out to accomplish, or what motivated you to want to put some of these stories down?
Honestly, so I'll tell you a little bit about why I actually started. So I've been like for about the last 10 years really writing this book in my head. And how I would write it, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I was sitting in the parking lot at a pharmacy, and I had a double ear infection. I'm waiting for my prescription to get done. And so if you don't know where Gay, Georgia is, I'm like in the middle of nowhere. And so it's going to take me 25 minutes to get back home. And so I'd rather sit and wait for my prescription than drive home, then have to drive back. So it's going to be a whole hour. Long story short, I start to get this idea for this book, and I began to write the introduction to this book that I hadn't even written yet. And I mean, it just kind of flowed out of me. And I don't know, as we're currently walking through all of the stages and the steps, it's something that's pretty powerful. And I'll say during the time my career, I've learned multiple lessons in my career: how to treat people, how not to treat people, how clarity also creates momentum for an organization. And that's the premise of the book. I'm walking through the lessons now as we speak.
Amazing. So what lessons are you open to sharing with us today from the
Um,
book?
I can share a little bit about most of it. So it is a parable. So if you're used to, or you like John Gordon books, or you love the book The Go-Giver, it's more in that format. So it's an easily digestible book. But there are characters in the book. The main character is a leader named Alexandra Ward, and she actually is walking through some of these lessons. And I will say most teams um, don't fail because people are lazy or untalented. They really fail because nobody fully understands what matters most. And so typically leaders tend to overwhelm teams with priorities, revisions, meetings, dashboards, and all of these kind of shifting directions. And the result creates confusion, and it's that confusion is disguised as productivity. So some of the lessons that I'm working through are how clear vision beats that constant activity.
Uh-huh.
And then also mostly how people move faster when expectations begin to become simpler. Also in alignment, and how you align with your teams so that you can actually regenerate them as well. Um, I think the biggest portion of this, and I'll talk a lot about each one of the lessons, but really this is the premise of it, is teams tend to stall when your leadership, you as a leader, change direction in leadership every single week or every day. And the core idea behind the book was when people understand the mission, they stop guessing and then they start building for you.
Mm, I love that. And I think one of the things about some of the lessons you talk about is things immediately pop into my head about like, yep, I remember that. Uh-huh. I've had that experience. And, there, whether it's I'm so well intentioned and I want to be productive, I'm just confused, or it's I'm just not bought in anymore because I'm not convinced that this vision's going to last. So why work that hard, to keep this one going? Losing faith in the organization because it feels like, there is no captain here. There are a lot of different emotional reactions to those plot points essentially in the book. So as you were putting those together and trying to figure out what are the specific handful of lessons that I want to touch on, did you find these are things that have come up for me multiple times, or did you find these are just things that were came up this one time but it was so critical it needs to be part of this story?
Actually, I think I would say it's a little bit of both. So in my career, there's lessons that you learn and you make a lot of mistakes as a leader. So, if you've ever got a leader out there that tells you that they don't make mistakes, really
Red
there's a
flag.
trust issue,
Yeah.
right? So, I'm really proud. I'm not proud of the mistakes that I've made, but I wouldn't change any of those mistakes or failures because it has developed me into the leader that I am today. What I will say is that each one of the lessons that I've learned has brought me from something into something that is greater. And I'll share I'll share kind of an antidote. And this is just one. I was having a conversation with one of my leaders, and you'll probably see the outcome of this in the book a little bit too. But I was sharing a lesson with a leader, and it was like she wanted everything to be extremely perfect.
Mm,
Everything had to be just right and perfect. And she's got a team, right? And so you have this team, this wonderful team that you're going to rely on to do all of these things. But because they're not doing exactly the way that you want to do it, you're starting to take those things from them. And 1 to 2 edits, maybe 3 if needed, is okay. And that provides directions. But anything more than that becomes control at that point. I think we as leaders forget that our teams, they need direction, but they don't need us to take over for them. It's like I give the example to teaching your kids to read. And if you've ever taught your child or a child to read, you know that it's going to take them 2 to 5 minutes to read a simple sight word, which is like cat. And so you're sitting down with them and they begin to start sounding out the words. And what happens though if you automatically say the word cat?
yeah, they don't actually like register the
It
yeah,
doesn't
there's no connection
register.
made. Yeah.
Right. So then they start looking to you for direction every single time they go to read. And you have to understand that as leaders, our job is to develop other people and allow them to make those mistakes, like sounding out the word cats, and sometimes they're going to sound it out and it's not going to be exactly right. And then at that point, you provide them direction. And so as leaders, we have to make sure that we're talking to our teams and allowing them to learn what that lesson is going to be because we did and somebody did it for us and helped us move to the next level. And really that's the point of us being in a leadership position, is to develop other leaders under us, not to know everything. And we can't lift the weight of others. We have to allow them to lift it for themselves.
Yeah. And I remember so I've been CEO of our company for the last 2 years, and there was a really critical tipping point for me when I went from feeling responsible for everything going on underneath me to relieved that, like, everybody who works for me is so much better at their jobs than I am at their jobs, and I can just okay, I don't need to do everybody's job or even necessarily understand all the details of everybody's job because, they know what they're doing. And I'm here to help when they have questions or to, redirect if, oh, this is a little bit different, but I absolutely don't want to read your emails. Like I absolutely don't want to review everything you do. Um,
And
which,
it's exhausting
it's
too. It's
exhausting.
exhausting. You
Yeah.
get burnout, creates burnout. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, So with that leader, whether it's the specific story or the greater sort of structure of that situation, what do you think the antidote is to extracting yourself from that level of control and trying to, is that just you don't have what it takes to be a leader, this is just you're just not lined up for it, or what is the rehab from controlling to leading?
So I'll say I've been in the C-suite now for a bit, and then I have leaders that are underneath me. And my job now is not only to the people that are on that team, but to my leadership as well, and or the leadership that is directly below me a level. And ultimately, if I can't teach them to lead, what kind of leader am I? So I do truly believe like it is that education, making sure that you're developing those individuals and you don't give up on them. Now, obviously, if there is a different play here where somebody is just not coachable and not trainable and maybe they're in the wrong position, then at that point we have to look at maybe it's time to
Mhm.
part ways.
Mhm.
But for the most part, most people are coachable. There
Mhm.
are very few people out there that, nobody wants to be a monster.
Mhm.
And then that's not what they set out to do.
Mhm.
So it's really making sure that you build that self-awareness skill so that they can be okay with good enough.
Mhm. Yeah. Nice. Um are there any other lessons from your book that you're interested to share today?
So there's 7 right now I'm working through, but I'll share this one. And I don't know if you've ever just kind of talked about culture, and culture tends to be a buzzword where everybody really thinks, about how they're going to build up a culture in a team. And I don't think it's just a slogan on a wall or like going to be something that's in your value slides in a town hall. Honestly, culture is, how we react as leaders under pressure. And I'll give you a couple things: how conflict is handled, who gets recognized, when people feel seen, and whether accountability is fair. And I think truly that lesson explains that culture is created daily. It's through those repeated behaviors, and um, allowing your team to make the mistakes, saying, "Hey, it's okay. We're going to stand back up from this." Allowing them the opportunity to read. And that's what shapes culture. Is teams really, they remember consistency. They remember leaders that model what becomes acceptable. And you can't be wishy-washy, right? You can't say one thing and then turn around because your leadership team says something and then go back to your team and flip on them after you've had that conversation. As a leader, you have to be strong enough to walk into the larger room and say, here's what the problem is. My team is closer to it than we are as a larger leadership team. And you can't be wishy-washy. You have to really model the behavior that becomes acceptable. And then small actions over time is what actually creates the culture. So doing what you say you're going to do. And I live by 3 values. The first one is people. The second one is purpose. And the third one is integrity. So you take care of the people that are in your charge. And when I say take care of the people in your charge, I really mean know and understand them. I know my team. I typically know their families. I almost always know who their kids are and what their kids' names are. And yeah, sometimes that means at Christmas time, you're getting and you're purchasing gifts for that whole family. And it could be something small or you could make something, whatever. But it doesn't necessarily have to be purchasing a gift, but making sure that you're acknowledging that their family is a huge part of what they're doing because they spend more time with you than they do with their families most
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And you want to make sure you acknowledge that they've put in the work. That builds trust, and trust is really built kind of just slowly. Like they want you to show up as a leader. And I when I talk about culture, I talk about how we show up.
Mm.
And I think that's really mostly important. They're going to model the behavior that they're taught. And its culture starts with you as a leader. It doesn't start with the other individuals.
Nice. And you also mentioned purpose.
Hmm. All right. So, yes. So, purpose. Purpose can be at an organizational level. And so on at an organizational level, you can talk about all of the things that what is the purpose of the organization, but really how do I translate that purpose and make it my own? And then I actually will push it back down to my team, and then my team will buy into that. And you have to get buy-in. There's a model out there called ADKAR, and it's um does everybody have the ability, the knowledge, um the sorry, ability, desire, the knowledge, the um training or the acumen, and then do they have are we able to reinforce the behavior? And one of the things that I want to make sure is that I'm consistently communicating when I can to my teams, so that actually helps, build up the culture. The third part of that is integrity. If they're seeing me do something completely different than what I say I'm going to do, none of it matters, but it bubbles up to the other three. So people, purpose, and integrity. I've lived with that model. I think Brene Brown is the one that talks about really getting clear on what your values are, and I think she says pick two. And after I read, I think her book, it's Dare to Lead. I think that's the first one that I read. And she talks a little bit about your values and what you value and how that trickles back down to your team. So that lesson actually came from her.
That's beautiful. We did an exercise as a company maybe a year ago or a few months ago. Who knows? One day we did this activity where, um, we talk about our core values as a company pretty regularly, and it's pretty embedded in who we are. But everybody has their own personal core values that can be so different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we did an exercise. My team is 11 people. So I said, we're going to take a few minutes. Everybody's going to jot down, what are the top 4 or 5 things? And I brought up a list. Here are, 100 examples of core values so that you're not just starting from scratch, but like which of these stand out to you? And then we went around the room and everybody talked through, these are the things that really resonated with me. This is why I care about these things. And, there was a lot of overlap in the list, but I don't think there were any 2 people that had more than 2 out of their 5 values in common with someone else. But being able to hear what mattered to other people and understand how that, I can see how that impacts the way you do your work, the way you show up for your teammates, the way, all those things. It for me at least, I hope everybody else felt this way. My like respect and admiration and affection for my whole team just lift like, oh, we all want to do good things and good work. And we're just all motivated in slightly different ways, but often really, really like obviously admirable ways where when you just get to understand what those things are, it makes more sense to those people. So, or it makes other people make more sense to you, and you can really sort of tap into their power. So, um,
I was going to say, I absolutely love that. I truly think, one of the things that I do with my team, I don't know if you know what Strength Finder is or not. So when I come and we actually look at the strengths of everybody else, and it's really cool. It's if you do it and then you don't discuss it, like it doesn't really matter. And so even with my old teams, we actually have a Friday call that we sit on for a half an hour where we review a podcast, and maybe this will be one that they review. I don't know, but they review podcasts and they listen to it and they say, okay, what lessons can I take from this so that I can actually accomplish what's next, personally or professionally. And when we did the Strengths Finder before, I left that organization, we did the Strengths Finder and everybody sat down and they're like, this was my strength. This is my strength. How do they work together? And this is really when AI was like something we didn't really talk about, where we plugged it in to AI, everybody's results. And it actually told us where there's overlap and how we work together and all of these cool little things. So I think knowing and understanding the individuals that are on your team, that's a really important part of culture. And I love that you do that. And I love that you talk about their vision, because you probably didn't know them until you started talking to them about the things that matter to them more and more and more. And I don't think it was a thing that didn't happen back, 20 years, 15 years ago. But more and more people want to include their families. And what they're doing on their day to day because they do spend a lot of time here. And I think leaders that really shut that part out of your team's day to day, if they need to stop in the middle of the day to go pick up a child, like let them go pick up their kid, right? They're going to stay and they're going to honor that. And also, you're creating leaders that are going to care about their teams later. I truly think that I commend you on that to help understand their vision and their values because I guarantee that a lot of what they valued included their family.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And that becomes we're a fully remote company. And
Mhm.
so, everybody has an understanding we're remote. That doesn't mean, oh, so I can sort of work from home and also I don't need to send my kid to daycare or like,
Yeah, yeah.
no, you're going to be busy all day, but also we pretty frequently have like, oh, look, there's a toddler in the meeting for a minute, just saying
Mhm.
hi, or,
Mhm.
people's dogs in the background, or, they're picking them up because their dogs are being needy, whatever, and it's just like, for example, but that's, when people feel connected, it's part of feeling authentic, right? I don't have to be two different people when I'm at home and I'm at work and pretend that one doesn't exist with the other. Like, this is all part of what I'm excited about and what gives me energy and what gives me purpose. And it's fun to watch the way our team gets so excited about each other's lives and each other's journeys. And I really credit our COO with being very intentional in cultivating that. And even little things like, hey, everybody post a picture from the last week, no context necessary. And you got to see
Mhm.
people like pictures of
Yeah.
their kids, like, oh, someone picked up some yard work equipment. I wonder what they're working on. And, just like little snippets of each other's lives that then it brings everybody closer together and gives everybody a sense of like, oh man, we're supporting each other at work, but the point of this is so that we can have these lives that we all care about, and we care about each other having those lives. So,
So I'll say this, at my previous company, I had 2 girls that worked in the same role, or
mhm,
women,
mhm,
full on women, and
mhm,
they worked in the same role, and they called me up and they're like, "Hey, do you mind if we go to California and we stay in a hotel Airbnb? We'll work during the day, but we kind of want to do like this vacation thing." I'm like, "Sure." And those type of like, I know that it's probably not like okay, for most companies to do that. But I trusted my team enough that they were going to work. And that was probably the highest performing week that they had because
yeah,
they were overly making sure that they
yeah.
were like on it.
Don't mess
And
this up.
yeah, don't
Yeah,
mess it up.
yeah,
But because of that, like if they wanted to go, across or, to another country, like by all means go.
yeah.
And the funny thing is they're part of that group that meets on Fridays too. And I absolutely adore them, but it makes they talk we talk about so often like your job or your people you work with are not your family, but I'm going to tell you like w- we are. I talk to them on a weekly basis. I talk to some of them daily, right?
Mhm,
And so they do become part of your inside circle. And
mhm,
so and I'm passionate about that and building the culture. And I think when we chat about that as part of your leadership, you don't have to be disconnected at the head
mhm,
because if you're going to have to let someone go, I think it's a little bit easier for you to let them go if they know and understand what your position is.
mhm,
And you're able to have those real conversations too. If it's a performance related conversation, I think it makes it easier to have performance related conversations. But I'll tell you this, um, during my time and since I've been building the relationships with my team, I have not had to let anyone go because of performance.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing when I mean,
Hmm.
and it's a credit to the team and a credit to you and a credit to whatever the amazing forces are in the universe that
Hmm.
that bring us together with wonderful
It
people.
actually,
So,
it really is.
okay, so Robin, on the topic of leadership, are there any sort of subcultures or areas that you feel particularly passionate about beyond obviously you're very learned in the field and very
Hmm.
experienced, like where has your heart taken you within the world of leadership?
So I am very passionate about women leading other women. And one of the things you'll notice even when you do get an opportunity to read my book is there's three distinct female leaders that are actually teaching leadership lessons to other female leaders. And I'm very passionate about how you grow female leaders in the business. There's some of my research I'm doing in my doctorate right now is how women advance in any type of organization. And the biggest thing, and one of the biggest surprises to me, is that most women advance and it takes them about 14 years to go from like a VP to a C-suite or even a director to VP. And where men, it takes them about 4 years to go from those roles. And the funny thing is that women who are promoted, they're typically promoted by other men, not women. Women who work for other women typically are not promoted to higher roles. And I think there's a culture that we need to compete against each other as women. And we've got to stop that. It truly is like, how do women support other women? And it's not just for the sake of supporting other women, because I support men and women equally. But I think that's where we need to get is women need to not see every other woman as competition and start to see like, hey, they've got brains, they have the tenacity, give
Mhm.
them a shot.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about that. And that's why I wrote about, the three female leaders in the book, throughout the book, and how they help others, help each other succeed.
Wonderful. I wonder where that comes from. If that is, you know, we could get into, a history of misogyny or or the patriarchy or something. But if there's also something around, I know there's a lot of data showing women also tend to doubt themselves more.
Hmm.
And so if they see other women and see themselves at all reflected in those people, our own self-doubts kind of reflected in those people
Hmm.
as well. Like, I just saw I just told my team about this. I saw a stat. It was online. Like Google it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't it
Hmm.
might have been just Instagram fake news or whatever, but that um 12% of men think they could score a point on Serena Williams in a tennis match. And just
Well,
this like, just there just is this inherent extra level of and that's not to say that men don't struggle with imposter syndrome or self-doubt or any of those things, but I think it's not necessarily the default setting in the way it is for women. And then, yeah, it's interesting the ways that we reflect our own doubt onto others that maybe we see ourselves in, and the intention it takes to like, let me flip that then. And like, if I see myself reflected in other women, great. What did I need at that stage to move forward? And how what's something I wish someone else had told me or done for me to help me move forward?
it's that's 100% correct. And that's why I talk so much about how you pour into people. And it can be man, woman, it doesn't really matter, but like treat everybody exactly the same, well, fairly. You want to treat everybody fairly, maybe not necessarily equally, but fairly.
Uh-huh.
But really, if you see somebody that's struggling, how do you pour back into them? I know that the women that I brought up in industry or in organizations, they did struggle with, am I going to be able to do this? Am I taking enough notes?
Uh,
I'm not as advanced as that. And I have a daughter too. So, and my daughter struggles with this too. And I have to explain to her, like, you're not at the same, in the same, you know, timeline that your friends are. And my daughter's pregnant right now too. So I'm going to be a grandma. Woohoo! I'm so excited.
Amazing.
But at the same time, like, all of her friends were having babies, 3, 4 years ago, and now she's just now having a baby. And so it's helping your team understand, like, you're not necessarily on that same timeline, but let me make sure that I give you the tools that you need so that you can be successful at the next rung. I think that's so important.
All right, Robin, let's go ahead and wrap up there. Listeners, if you want to learn more about Robin and if you want to be on the lookout, again, her book is Clarity Curve. Be on the lookout for that. But details about Robin will be in the show notes. Otherwise, Robin, thank you so much for joining me
Yeah,
today on
thank you.
Data Planet.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you, Emma. You have a great day.
You too.